Hey everyone, it's late at night, my aquarium light's off. It's about 1 in the morning, I just got home, I think I'm actually too tired to even eat. But I went on a trip down to Massachusetts like I said I would in my last video for snails. Let me explain. I also got some pizza. I love Little Caesars, but there's not one for 2 hours. So anytime I go to Massachusetts, I try to bring back one of them. So I love snails, and I checked the whole internet. I really wanted to buy apple snails. Apple snails are a type of large snail that comes from Asia that they used to sell in all the pet stores when I was little. And I found out Massachusetts still sells them in the pet stores because they're already extremely invasive in that state, so why ban them? Up here they are banned for sale, but you can own them as pets. I wild caught a whole bunch of them tonight in a local park in Massachusetts. So, when I was a kid, I used to go to this park that I'm not going to name with my uncle. They had apple snails in all their ponds. So I went into that park this evening. I was going to do it tomorrow morning when it was daylight, but I went in there at night with a flashlight. And I went in these ponds where I used to catch these huge apple snails. And these snails can get up to 4 inches. That's not an exaggeration. The biggest one I found tonight was almost 3 inches. It's an empty shell, but I took it for an example. I caught a bunch that were like 2 inches, bigger than any other snail I have. So these apple snails were all over the ponds when I was little. I went there today. I could not find a single one for an hour. And nature found a way to get rid of the invasive species. Let me explain. When I was little, you'd find these snails that were this big. They were massive things. They were the size of my fist as a little kid. They're like half the size of my fist now. Huge apple snails. They don't get that big in the aquarium, and I think that's because there's so much competition for food. But in nature, they can get actually the size of a small apple because they have endless slime, endless food. But what I realize is, since I was a little kid, the invasive snails are almost gone. Because with the invasive snails, now there's crayfish everywhere, booming in population, eating them. These ponds I used to go to all the time as a little kid had so many snails. I never really caught crayfish. Now the crayfish are everywhere, and the snails are almost gone. So I went to a river that was near those ponds thinking, hey, the snails might be in the river. There was crayfish everywhere. I didn't see any. But you know what? I thought to myself, crayfish don't like swift-moving water. I went to a swift-moving part of that river. Oh, there was snails everywhere, a whole bunch of these invasive mystery snails. Everywhere. But at this point, they're not as invasive as they once were because the animals that are native realize, hey, I can eat this. I have never seen one of these snails ever up north. They could become invasive up here, and that's why they don't sell them anymore up here. But I'm not going to be one of those people that decides, you know what, my kid doesn't like this aquarium anymore. I'm going to go dump all these non-native animals in the local river. And that's how a lot of invasive species literally get there. Unless you're from the South. The South, when I talk about the South, I'm meaning places that are tropical, like the Louisiana Bayou. I'm talking about the Everglades. There's invasive snakes. And one of the most invasive things in the Everglades is the plecostomus fish. Almost every home aquarium has one. They're native to Mexico and South America. They're not supposed to be in Florida. But Florida's warm, and that tropical fish is extremely invasive. Hurricanes is why a lot of those animals get out. The streets are flooded. People's aquariums get broken. The snakes get out. That's how that happens. Up north, if a snake gets out, it's gonna die. It's not native. It's tropical. It can't live up here. Mystery snails from a cold part of Asia, however, can survive up here if they do get out. There's also a lot of other things, like if you ever heard of the giant African land snail, it can get as big as a football. It is a massive snail, and it would wreak havoc on our agricultural if it got out. You can own those in the United States only if you have a exotic animal license. I don't have one of those. My dad had one of those. He could have got one of those if he wanted to. I'm not going to pursue a license like that. It takes a lot of college and a lot of effort. And you know what? In that tank there, I feel like my two big goldfish are actually mating in there. The way they've been acting with each other. I always buy animals in pairs. Those two big goldfish love each other. The suckerfish love each other that I found. Those white suckerfish are native. I found them. I always get animals in pairs, usually. So they have a friend. The only one in there that doesn't have a friend is the Placo. But the reason I got a whole bunch of snails is because I intend on my pet crayfish eating them. I have a dwarf crayfish up there. He's very small. But if I'm away for a week, he'll probably kill a snail when he gets hungry. Down below, I have a very big crayfish, which is a native species. I never see the thing. It's always hiding. It's very rare when I see him. Unfortunately, I bought him because I couldn't find one. Oh, he's actually out right now. There he is. Big old thing. Down in Massachusetts, just because I'm not looking for a crayfish. I found there was 100 of them down there today in the river I was getting the snails out of. But now that we had a talk about invasive species and stuff, let me show you what I got. These are huge. This is what I got from Massachusetts today, and they're going through quarantine. Some of these snails are literally over 2 inches long. And be careful, these big guys can literally pinch you and hurt you when they shut their shell. Look how big that is. That is huge. It's an invasive species, but they'll be good aquarium pets. Maybe even put a few in my small pond, I don't know. But they're huge. This is the example I got. Look at how big this shell is, but there's no one home. That is a huge snail. And they get twice as big as that, but I didn't find any that big tonight. I found a whole bunch of smaller ones, like, let me grab this guy off the side. Here's a smaller apple snail. But they create a lot of waste. I just cleaned this when I got home half hour ago. And look at all the poop they're already releasing. They make these little pellets. The other snails don't do that. Other snails, their poop doesn't look like that. This empty shell doesn't need to be in there. I only took that as an example. But these are invasive apple snails, but they do make really good pets, and they reproduce very quickly, is what I'm hoping they do in the aquarium, so the crayfish has unlimited food. They don't sell these anymore. The only guy who I could even find online that sold them on eBay, he's from the south, and he has no option of only buying snails. I have to buy a dozen of these along with a dozen crayfish. I think he's selling them because a lot of people will eat these bigger snails. I also, when I was down there at the river in Massachusetts, caught, that is a native ram's horn snail about the size of a quarter. There's also a small ram's horn snail right there that I also caught because I like to get things in pairs. So that's how these came to be. They were either brought to Massachusetts in a pet store or as food imported. Over here are also mystery snails, but I guess these type aren't invasive, so you're able to easily buy them. See, there's yellow ones, white ones, red ones, all different color. I got these guys here on eBay from a seller in Florida. They're also going through the quarantine because I have no idea if these were kept with fish that might have things like ick. Ick can't live on them, but it can, however, come here in the water and it'll die in 1 to 2 weeks. So we just got these guys in the mail actually yesterday. They're doing good. Over here are Amazon snails, which I didn't get as good of a deal. These are also mystery snails. They have green stripes in their shells. They're pretty cool looking. I also bought non-native ram's horn snails. Some of them even have red skin. They're pretty cool. Ram's horn snails don't have a trap door, which means if the crayfish wants to eat them, it's going to. It cannot, like, these guys, if they're closed in their shell, they can't, the crayfish can't get them. Crayfish has to get them while they're crawling. If the baby crayfish, my dwarf crayfish up here, tries to go after one of these huge ones, it could close its shell and literally break off the crayfish's claw. They will regrow their claws. They can. Just like a lobster, they can regrow their claws. I don't want that to happen, but it's possible. But I really wanted to get some of these big guys, and no one sells them except one guy online who I think sells them as food. They are huge, and they can get twice as big as that. So I'm going to put most of these in my aquariums. And this guy here, you can eat some if you want. Just hopefully you let them reproduce. Because look at the algae in this bottom tank. There's brown algae everywhere. That water's crystal clear. That's brown algae. See, the only brown algae is right here because no one can get it against that rock. But the baby snails, when they reproduce, will. Another day, I'm gonna do this. See how there's lots of slime up here? Every now and then one of the snails ventures out of the water a few inches just to eat. I'm gonna flood the hole upstairs for like half a day. Let the bottom feeders go nuts and drain it back down. I love this little guy. He's friendly, he's interesting, he's always out walking around. I love the dwarf crayfish. He's too small to kill most occupants in here. He has killed one of my big yellow snails. You see the empty shell? He also killed at least one of my snails that doesn't have a trap door. Because the ones that don't have trap doors, when they go across the sand, they're defenseless. When they're against a flat surface like a rock or the glass, they're pretty safe. And also today, when I was in Massachusetts looking at these ponds, this is a bullfrog tadpole. And he's starting to grow legs. He did not have those legs at all when I introduced him to the tank. You see him, he's maybe maximum 4 inches. In Massachusetts today, I saw tadpoles that were like 8 inches. They were huge. And I found a frog the size of a rat today in one of those Massachusetts ponds. It was so cool. Those bullfrogs they got down there are massive. I wanted to take one so bad, but we already got this guy, and my viewers want him to be named Scar. Someone left a comment saying he should be named Scar, and it got a lot of likes, and that became a top comment, so we'll name him Scar. The reason we call him Scar, originally because I got these white suckerfish out of a river, I thought they might like more current in here. So I put a power head which jets water really quickly across this part of the tank. He got stuck against the intake of the power head. I removed him. He couldn't have been there more than 10-20 minutes because it was just setting up the tank and I was keeping an eye on him. Anyways, when I took him off, he looked fine. Then the next day, the whole side of his body was black and blue and shriveled up. He wasn't doing too good. After about a week, the black and blue internal bleeding went away and he's back to normal. He's eating. I've been making sure he gets food specifically. But yeah, he no longer has the scar, but we'll name him Scar because of that. I can't wait until he becomes a frog. See, temperature is about 72. I did have the temperature higher when we were treating the ick because it makes the ick go through its cycle faster. But down here, see how that's 76? I don't really like these heaters. They're factory set at 76. Ooh, it does look like that snail's still alive. I put 2 down here and he killed one of the white snails. But this is also factory set at 76. It's not plugged in. That one right there is, you can manually adjust it. I have it adjusted to be like 78. It can't keep up. It's undersized. So you know what? I think I'm going to plug this back in and let that tank also be 76 degrees because the frog will develop faster. And anyone who was criticizing about the wood stove in here, saying, aren't you going to kill your fish? Because it gets to be about 100 Fahrenheit up by the ceiling. Well, face height, it only gets to be about 80. Now, I ran that wood stove a couple weeks ago for a couple of days. Not because it was cold, but more to have a nice background piece when we were having an early Thanksgiving for the family members who are snowbirds who have already disappeared to Florida and they're going to miss Thanksgiving and Christmas. Anyways, I ran that thing 3 days. The water in here started in the 70s. Slowly over a couple of days, it climbed to be about 80 degrees. And that is where it stopped. In the winter, it will be much colder out, so it will not get that bad. They can handle 80 degrees. It did increase their water temperature a little bit, but they're in this colder corner. I'm not concerned at all. It got to 80 degrees, and that's where it stopped. The bottom tank did not budge because it's closer to the floor. That's not bad for them, especially considering this thing is only going to run like half the winter whenever I'm home. So I'm not worried about that at all. And also in developing news, look at that. The pothos plant is starting to send roots down. I expect a growth spurt. Pothos is a vine that most people keep in their house in a pot, but it can also grow completely underwater. I've done it for years. That eventually, once it gets some roots and becomes established, it will start sucking pollution out of the water from the fish. It'll clean the water. It'll also become an invasive jungle that no animal, the snails won't eat it, the fish won't eat it because it's actually toxic and the animals in there are smart enough to not eat it. They will, however, clean the algae off its leaves. That's a lot of surfaces for algae to grow when that vine starts growing underwater. It's nothing but beneficial. But I'm tired. I don't think I can eat. I'll probably heat that up tomorrow. Tomorrow we're also going to do a rock tumbler video. So I didn't like my rocks even at stage 4. They're running stage 4 again right there. And if they're not polished enough, I bought stage 5 and stage 6, which most people don't do. See these cases of 6 containers? That's about 40 bucks. Each of these is 28. So when you get into these fine powders, it is very, very expensive. This is basically aluminum powder. That's how you're polishing. So when you don't ever want to put what's in these down your drain. It'll solidify like concrete in your pipes. Always rinse these out outside with a garden hose. However, because this is aluminum, and aluminum is linked to possibly cause Alzheimer's. If you have a well, do not rinse this stuff out near your well. Do it on the other side of your yard. And I'm going to end the video here. Thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day. We will have developments on these snails. I've had these snails here. I got the ram's horn snails. Then I got these guys 3 days later. I've had them for about a week. 1 more week, they get to go up here. 2 more weeks, maybe I'll let you guys go in at a week, because you were native caught. I'm not worried about any random person's aquarium water. Maybe you guys can go up here next week. You guys are going to wait 2 more weeks. And I'm so glad I bought a commercial grade air pump. A residential air pump is like 20, 30 bucks. This was 45 bucks. And it came with this. I can tap off so many lines. It's so convenient just buying a commercial one. It's so powerful. You can run so many tanks. Look at all those bubbles. Look at all those bubbles. Great investment. And I also figured this guy out right here. I messed with it one day. I know how it functions. And I overfed them. They had a buffet one night when I was testing that. What I don't like about this product is, so for healthy aquariums, I'm sorry, I'm not going to end the video here. I'm going to talk a little more. Oh, look at this guy coming up out of the water to get some slime. Pretty cool. Anyways, lost my train of thought there. A healthy aquarium, you don't feed your fish every day. Some people might agree with me, some might not. I feed my fish twice a week. In the wild, fish aren't going to eat every single day. They might not get a good meal every single day. I feed them a couple times a week, or if I have a visitor that wants to see them eat. This, however, you cannot set it for any less than every day. If I'm away, I guess that's okay. I'll just have this on its minimum. Don't put flake food in here. Humidity is going to make it harden. I have shrimp pellets in here. But I got this thing set up. I guess I will have to do it every day. This thing, you can set this thing up where it feeds them 4 times a day. You also set revolutions. This thing spins, and that's how it dumps the food in. I have it connected here, and I use this empty jar to fill the gap on the side of the aquarium. Just in case the curious frog who might be up there at that point the next time I go away. I don't know. The tadpole might be a frog the next time I decide to go away for a month, but I don't know. I have this thing just in case. You can have it consistently plugged in if you're away for a while, but the battery in this review say lasts a year. But I find that as a problem. I can have this thing only run a minimum of a day. I can't have this thing, I can't program it to only spin once a week, like I was hoping. Because I was honestly hoping to have this thing spin every 3.5 days. Let me explain. When I'm home, I will feed them in the middle of the night so all my nocturnal creatures can eat without the pig goldfish eating everything. Then I'll feed them next time in the day so the goldfish can eat, but the bottom feeders aren't, if you get what I mean. I was hoping I'd be able to program this thing for every 3.5 days. That's not possible. It's still a good quality product, but it should have an option to not feed them every single day. Maybe I'm missing something, but as far as I can tell, this thing will operate at least once a day. I'm okay with that. I'm sure the fish will like that, but that's the way it is. It is a good product, and I will use that. I bought a second one for that tank, in case I'm away. Now I'm actually ending the video. Have a great night, everyone.